go, it's focused. Hello. So, giving this a go. So today, going to start looking at history of rockets and rocket propulsion. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm teaching it on Tuesday and I would like to know more about it. So when I teach it, I'm not reading off a PowerPoint. So let me know how I sound at the moment, how things look, as this is my first stream. So all feedback is welcome. Cool. Let's start. Cool, so yeah, history of rockets. So we're going to use NASA, ESA, other reliable sources of it. So the information I've got goes from ancient rockets, so first types of rockets created, where it's literally gas in a tube, and the gas is coming up. Thank you. And then it goes all the way up, and this one stops at the end of the space race and Cold War-esque time. But I want to go into a bit more detail after that, post-1991, as more of an extension for the people I'm teaching, so they know, yes, we still do space. Space wasn't a thing we did in the 1900s, which makes it sound really long ago, but it's not. But yeah, so we're going to go into more post-1991, what other countries did post then as well. And then in the next part we're going to look at is rocket propulsion, so we talk about, in this section, solid fuel, liquid fuel, and ion propulsions. I definitely need to read up a bit more on ion propulsions because that is mysterious magic science to me at the moment. I understand it slightly, enough to explain it, but not enough that I want to. So we're going to go into that. Talk about phases of launches and see where that takes us. So if you're looking at this thing going, I recognise that. It is from the RAF Air Cadets. I'm teaching bronze space to them on Tuesday, or these two sections. So, the history of rockets stretches over thousands of years, starting at 400 BCE, before Common Era. And CE stands for Common Era. Fun fact. Making our way to the 16th century, we'll look at the development of rockets and how they started to spread across the world. And then they give me notes at the bottom. So in the simplest form, rockets are just chambers of gas under pressure. An opening in a chamber allows the gas to escape in one direction, providing thrust, which propels the rocket in the opposite direction. And then we'll talk about that. We'll look at nearly 2,500 years. So long. So they start off with this dude, Aelius Gellius. Dear Lord, these names are hard. Wrote about Greek. This dude wrote about another dude who lived in the city of Tentra in southern Italy. Wrote about the dude, so Arctitas, that's how I'm saying his name. I do apologise. Flying pigeon made out of wood. They give us the animation, but it's an actual flying pigeon. Amazed at locals, well done. Inside the animal was a bladder with an opening at the ear. It was attached to the kettle, which boiled water, and then pressure reach bursting point. There you go, I can read. And he was suspended on wires, flown 200 meters. So excited. Let's see if I can find something a bit better than that. Oh, that's a yoga position. I was like, what? And then we've got Flying Pig, the bicycle company. Okay, first rocket. NASA. Yeah. Oh. Very old website. That's not the flying pigeon, that's something else. video. Is there any images? Nice images. It shows it. Oh, that's a nice image. I like that one. Let's visit the flying pigeon of Arctius. Oh, it's in ancient Greek. Does it tell me? Does it tell me where the article is? So I can read more about it. Nope. Steam builders. Go. No, the museum. But this is where it is, isn't it? No. Evidence shows that our self-sufficient automated intelligent mechanism, marble station designed to exude power, specific has delivered before our counting. So yeah, flying pigeon. Cool. Oh, this one's good. That like explains it about more. So in the 4th century BC, a Greek inventor reportedly built a wooden. I could try just googling his name. Yeah, that could work. May do that in a second. This website looks trustworthy. In the 4th century BC, a Greek inventor reportedly built a woman-steered propelling flying pigeon. Working in Tarentum, the mathematician and Polybian philosopher Archytas of Tarentum created a bird-shaped machine reputedly able to travel up to 200 meters through the air, and astonishment of his fellow citizens. However, the sole mention of this feat occurred 5 centuries after when he'd done it. So it was word of mouth. Word of mouth. So this is what Aulus Gellius reports 500 years after. Archytas made a wooden model of a dove with such mechanical ingenuity and art that it flew. So nicely balanced was it, you see, with weights moved by a current of air enclosed and hidden within it. About so improbable a story, I prefer to give faithfulness. Own words, Archytas, the Tarentine, being in other lines also a mechanic, made a flying dove out of wood where, whenever it lit, it did not rise again. So the dude looked at it, was like a bit sus. Skepticism. But we've tried it. Many people have tried doing it before. It makes sense scientifically. With you put stuff into a bottle of Coke, Mentos, shake it up, boom, it goes forward. It's the same access here. Just need to make sure the wood's light enough. Opening. I really like this image. So I'm gonna add this image in. Quote it there so I know where I've got it from. I don't know what happened. There we go. Am I not allowed to copy it? Why is my... I know. There we go. And put over this dude's face here. And add an animation so it pops up. So it doesn't actually just cover the dude's face. I keep saying dude, I know his name. It's Elias. Yeah, let's not do anything too fancy. And then start with previous so I'm not clicking so often. Cool. Moving on. I've got that website saved so I can read into it a bit more if I need to. But then go to 100, 200 common era. So now not nowish, that's silly. So mid-1st century Greek mathematician Hero Alexander, this is what we looked at earlier, described a steam powered device called an aeropile. This is a metal sphere which is mounted above a kettle, and the fire was lit underneath the kettle boiling the water, creating the steam. The steam then travelled up the pipes into the sphere and out to L shapes, and it made it spin, which is fun. Which is this. But I want to see if I can find a video of it actually spinning, because that would be the entertaining part for people. Do 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 do. Play. Oh, go away. I'll need to figure out how to get rid of that. Oh, there's a video.
Välkommen till Hålands bar, Revolut, där han kan designa sitt kort för att matcha sin outfit.
Swedish accent. Cool, that's looking good. Let the ads run on that. That'll be useful to have, so they can actually see it spinning. 200 years after the flying pigeon, a Greek, when water was heated. They understand thrust and drag and all that. Cool, so when do I want that video to start? I want to see it move. It does end up poking it. There we go. So there we go. Oh no, I want copy at current time. Insert video from online. Make it smaller. And then we can cover his face again. Animations, and animation appear. I want it to appear before it starts playing. There we go. Cool. Moving on to 1000 BC. So gunpowder was the first recorded in 19th century China. It was thought to be found by accident by alchemists trying to find an elixir for eternal life, or someone very unlucky for a cook. Gunpowder was used in firecrackers and fireworks to scare away evil spirits. These, along with fireworks, are still used today in Chinese festivities. along with many other festivities. Everyone uses fireworks nowadays. And then moving on to the 11th century, the Chinese put gunpowder in bamboo shoots and attached it to arrows. They're called fire arrows and acted like incendiary devices, so shot very quickly, then exploded. Then they realised they didn't have to use the bow and just use gunpowder. And then the first proto guns. Does Danny give me any more information? Oh, okay. Formula gunpowder. So, a monk called Roger Bacon proved the formulation of gunpowder, which helped considerably increase the range of rockets when they turned into Europe. Gunpowder was then the main method of propulsion for these new rockets after having a Chinese rocket used against them. The Mongols worked out how to make their own. Fair. They were probably responsible for the spread of rockets because they went everywhere. And all the experiments in the 14th century. And then in the 15th century, throughout this period in France, use of rockets was extensive. In 1410, French author Jean Faucon outlined designs of rockets launched in tubes, modern bazookas. And then Ioannis de Fronta of Italy designed a surface-running rocket-powered torpedo set for enemy ships on fire. Cool. So that's not on the slide itself. So I don't want to add, but no, I know it is. It's next. It just doesn't make sense. We talk about Bacon here, so Bacon can move across. Oh, none of this currently makes sense. That's fun. Let's open Word and organise it. And this is why, kids, you prep your lessons beforehand. You can't see the Word document, but it's there, I promise. It is there. You can see the Word document, there you go. It does exist. Boop. Boop. Can't really read it, but it's there. So I can zoom in a bit. Not what I wanted to do. Nope. Play again. There we go. There we go. Cool. So, we've got slide. So these two, perfectly fine. Early rockets. So we talk about these two. Oh, nope. Ooh, she's got it. Let's put you up there for now. Well, we're not looking at the internet too much. Back to NASA. Cool, so that is slide 68. Nope, 68. 8, there we go. And then on slide 69, we start talking about let me just copy and paste that first. There we go. We start talking about bacon. And then did we talk about Mongols in here? Fireworks. Jump around a lot. We jump around a lot. So we're in the 13th century. Completely skip the 14th century. So I may just rename this to 13th to 15th century. Yeah, because we're going into UK and Tudors. And then we go to 17th century. So I'll just go 13th to 16th century here. Yeah. Makes sense. Because then people won't go, all of this happened in 1267. So 13th century, yeah, 13th century to, there we go, 16th century. Move that so we can see it. I can't spell, which is fine. Oh, nope. There we go. Cool. That makes a bit more sense. So, on this one, okay, so we got a Chinese, so I can get rid of the things that are not needed on this one. I can then add the 13th century to the 15th century stuff on this one. There we go. So 13th century, Roger Bacon. It doesn't. Where? I've lost the Mongols. I've lost the 14th century. So this says 13th century for the Mongols. That's fun. So the use of gunpowder spread through the rest of Asia, eventually spreading and arriving to the West. It is thought it was either spread by the Mongols during the invasion in the 13th century or through the Silk Route, Silk trade, a whole other kettle of fish that is. We're probably responsible for the spread of rockets throughout Union. So that's not 14th century then. That's also 13th century. So get rid of that. And then in the 15th century, we have all that. 16th century, rockets fall out of favour as instruments of war, but more used more for firework displays. The desire for fireworks to become bigger and reach higher altitudes encouraged innovation in the field. Johann Schmidlap, that's a fun one to say, developed the first multi-stage rocket, so that's going to be his picture there. A large initial rocket carried the firework and smaller secondary rocket. They use that today. When a larger rocket burnt out, the smaller one ignited, take the firework higher altitude. This principle on multi-stage rocket is still used today. First transportation rocket. Did we talk about that? No, we started talking about Newton. Oh, this is the chair. So a Chinese official named Wan Hu introduced rockets as a means of transportation. He assembled a powered flying chair by attaching 2 large kites and 47 fire arrows rockets to the chair. Wan Hu sat on a chair on the day of the flight and gave the command to light the rockets. 47 rockets assistants each armed with its own torch, lit the fuses. There were a tremendous roar accompanied by a billion clouds of smoke. When the smoke cleared, Wuhan and his flying chair were gone. No one is sure what happened to Van Hu. Legends say he propelled into space, but unlikely. And 5 rockets will likely explode, and he went up and blown to pieces. Fun. It sounds like Kung Fu Panda, yeah. But Po didn't die. He became Dragon Warrior. Sorry for the spoilers. So, yeah, there's a video though. What does the video tell me? Is this about the exploding chair from Kung Fu Panda? Where Po was success in it and he was not. Might need to nick my partner's premium YouTube. But welcome to Swedish Adverts. It's a government official. He was fascinated by the moon and wanted to go there. Fair. He took the task of building himself a spaceship. To do so, he took a bamboo study chair. Why are we showing bombs? And 47 large gunpowder filled rockets. Those are not rockets, they are bombs. And attached them to the bamboo chair. I want that image. That image is good. You can use that as a discussion point. He strapped himself to the chair. This is a really slow video. It's about 2 minutes long. And called his servants to light the rockets. Came next was an enormous explosion with smoke. When the smoke cleared, the chair and Van Hu were gone. He became the next Dragon Warrior. Some believe he died in the explosion. Some believe he reached the sky and never came back. A government official wants to try something and then they just go, image. Let's make it bigger. Copy image. Then we can make this appear and then I go, boom, story time. Because it'll be funny. And then, add an animation. Oh, can I? Can fly out. Can I make, I want to go other way. Can I make it go the other way? How do I make it go the other way? Effect options. Smooth. Top to bottom. No, I want bottom to top. I want to top. To top. There we go. And then he shoots away. Oh my gosh. I'm a genius. I know how to use PowerPoint. Cool. So that'll be a fun little story for him. And then I can, do I put a picture of Po on it? No. I don't know. They're young, the people I'm going to teach. I don't know if they know Kung Fu Panda, which will hurt me. It will hurt me that they don't know Kung Fu Panda. But they maybe do. I don't know. Cool. Moving on to 17th century and World War II, so a large time period. So, from the 17th century onwards, our understanding of physics behind rockets grew thanks to the scientist Sir Isaac Newton. More advancements are made, revolutionising our world. So we're going to look at the development of rockets up to the start of World War II. So the word, another fun fact for you all. The word rocket originates from the Italian word rocca, which is part of the weaver's loom that held the wool, also known as a rochetta, which is French became rochette. And in English language in the 17th century, it became the word rocket. So for those that don't know, it is literally just a piece of wood that's shaped like that. And it has the wool on it, and you just see him go. Shoo! They zoom it across the screen. Hold on, you can't see my hands. I'm using my hands so you can't see them. So this big, and they just zoom it across like a rocket for a weaver. And a random photo of fireworks, because why not? Newton's law. The actual animation of this, they put sunglasses on him because he's so cool. So cool, Isaac Newton is. Bless him. So in 1860, read numbers. We can read numbers. In 1687, a scientist called Isaac Newton published a book. In this book, he wrote what described the laws of motion and the laws of universal gravitation. This book revolutionised science and is considered one of the most important pieces of work in scientific history. Newton was inspired when he saw an apple fall from the tree in the orchard in his family home. And then he went, why? Why? Or as in Swedish they say, varför? Which I really enjoy saying. Oop. So, and they give him some cool glasses. I can play all, can't I? They put so much animation on this. Boom. Oh, and there's a noise. That's exciting. Bless them. So, yeah, we do talk about called Newton's laws. So, as they're execs, they should know Newton's laws quite simply. Then notes. Over the next few hundred years, rockets eventually were made more efficient in combat. What remained a mystery, however, was the physics behind them. It wasn't until the late 1600s that scientist Isaac Newton began to understand the physics of the objects in motion. Cool. So, going to talk about his vision. Whew! Graphs. Make a balloon and CD hovercraft. I don't have CDs or a balloon, so I can't, which is sad. So, we've got first one, law of inertia. With every object will remain in rest or uniform motion in a straight line unless compelled to change its state by the action of external force. So, what I need you guys to do is, if you didn't understand that, do you understand it when I explain it? Or if you did I explain it? Good. So this one basically means, so it will stay still. So this mouse, my little purple mouse, will stay still until I put an extra force on it. And that extra force could be me going, just tapping it. My mouse is going mad now. But that also means if something's travelling in a straight line, it will stay going in a straight line unless something pushes it along. Before this, we talked about satellites. So what I could do is talking about laws of inertia. When we talk about satellites, the reason we need so many to make a constellation, so a group of satellites is called a constellation, is because things travel in a straight line. If there's nothing to make that line curve because of this law of inertia, the more straight lines we have, the more curves we get. Cool. Let me know if that made sense or you're now more confused. Have a tendency to do that. So we have the second law of changing momentum. This is the one that confuses me a bit more. When the force is applied to a body, the rate of change of momentum is proportional to and in the direction of the applied force. No, actually that does make sense now. So force equals mass times acceleration. So the force that is applied to it is proportional to how it's directed. And when the rate of change of momentum is proportional to direction of, so my hand's moving this way, this comes this way, that's going to move that way now. Or diagonal, depending on what force goes into it. But my hand's going this way, and I have this massive box of tissues, it's going to force it more in the other direction. So that's the mass. How fast it's going. Do that. It's like a T-boning car. The car's going that way, the car goes that way. Action reaction. This is the one that everyone knows. For every action or force, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So when I lean back on my chair, the chair moves backwards, but it's also pushing me back up. It's the reason why we can push stuff, and it doesn't just go bloop. Cool. What does the animations do? Because this is new to me, this part of the presentation is, that's not what I wanted to press. There we go. Play all. It's going to be very quick. It's not this quick when I'm doing it. Cool, the last one's helpful. Wonderful. There's quite a fun thing you can do with wheelie chairs as well when you got this. Is you get two people on wheelie chairs and a push. And they both move backwards. Cool. And that's all we're talking about that. Wonderful. So now into the 1800s. The Congreve rocket was invented by William Congreve in 1808. He was based his design on Indian Mysorean rockets. The Congreve rockets were used extensively throughout the Napoleonic Wars. There we go. That's Europe. Don't look at what my degree was. I should know that. It is an iron case containing black powder, similar to gunpowder. This was mounted on a stick so it could be launched from a tripod, even in a shallow trench. The national anthem for America, written during the War of 1812, mentions the red rocket glare, which refers to the rockets that were used in Fort McHenry. I got a jangle. There we go. Scientists in Russia began experimenting with larger, more powerful rockets, with some weighing over 45 kilograms. Some of these rockets were powerful that they scored deep holes in the ground before takeoff. India began making their rockets from iron in the second half of the 18th century. So this is before the 1800s yet again. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. India began making the rockets from iron. They discovered improvements in stability and range. These rockets had sharp blades attached to them, like an arrowhead of the Chinese fire arrows. They were successfully used by Hyder Ali, Sultan of Mysore, against British East India Company during the 1780s and the 1790s. So yeah, I need to talk about that part before I start talking about what's on the PowerPoint. Cool. How do I set myself to a mind to say that and not going backwards in time? Doop-a-doop-a-doo. There's the dude. Included knowledge with French. Of course he did. Bangalore. Tomato War. That's useful. I like that image. So I can add this on here. Make it look like it's actually supposed to be there. But we're putting it here. That's not going to make sense. I could, but that needs me to remember to look at my document when I'm teaching, because sometimes I just go. Oh, if I have a little image to tell me, it's like, oh, I need to talk about that. And click. And then that all comes up after, so that image just stays there. That's useful. Cool, see you, thanks for hanging around. Enjoy your food. Oh, my back. If I add a picture of his face as well, I will understand. What I'm talking about. Copy image. And then I'm going to go animations, appear at the same time as this one. And then we're going to add animation and get rid of it once I'm done. Start with previous, so I'm not clicking like a nightmare. Cool. Because I like me clicking on this a lot. Do 2 seconds. Okay. Cool. If I play that, that should make sense. But my dude didn't put it up, did they? Oh, very quickly, because it just plays it incredibly fast. We then move on to World War II, so we skip so much of the history. So much. We miss most. Breach load cannons. Basically, we use some cannons. Didn't use them. We then look at advancements in World War II. Missiles and warfare. PR3 rockets. See, they say, did you know they have these rockets? And they won't tell you what these rockets are other than an image. So, rocket propelled 3-inch. It was a British air-to-ground projectile. Introduced in Second World, 3 inch referred to the nominal denominator of the rocket magnitude. So I'm just going to copy that and put that there. So I know what the RP3 is, and that's what that image is. And a Hawker Typhoon, which that. So lead up to World War II. So this doesn't make sense. Let's just onwards, because it goes up to World War II, and then we have this next part where we talk about World War II. It doesn't make sense. Called Lead Up to World War II. In the end of the 19th century, science fiction was becoming popular, with many scientists becoming inspired by these adventures. Konstantin Troslowski was no different. He worked on the concepts of space travel and rocket propulsion. He is considered as one of the pioneers of space flight and founded father of modern rocketry. He wrote more than 400 works, including approximately 90 published pieces of space travel-related subjects. In 1896, Trotsky derived a formula known as the rocket equation, which is mathematically formula describing the motion of the rocket. See, I know the kids wouldn't like seeing that equation, but it'll be cool for them to actually see that equation. So the maximum velocity of the vehicle is now extendable. Ooh. There's a lot of physics. Come back. Ooh. Ooh. Gonna put that there, and I'm just gonna go, look kids. I don't know. Here is a pretty little thing. That's not gonna work. The same one? Do you talk about the history? You don't talk about who wrote it though. Is that the same one? Oh, that's even more scary. No, that's not the same one. Is it? Cool. There we go. No, I want animation. I want to add animation. I want it to appear. There we go. Cool. So delta V, that I'm pretty 90% sure that's delta, is how fast the rocket you want the rocket to go. More specific, so it's the speed. It's the change in speed the rocket can achieve. For delta, woo! So it starts at 0. You want to be able to achieve 8 meters per second. The speed needed for orbit. The change in speed, also known as a delta V, is 8 meters per second. The V is the exhaust velocity that represents the total force that the rocket can create. So the speed is the force we normally only think of the rocket speed, but the fuel is burning as a mass and speed too. The mass... Eight. The mass... So... exhaust velocity and represents the total force that the rocket can create. So how much it can put out. The intuition behind this is crucial. We normally only think of the rocket speed, but the fuel is burning, has mass and speed too. The mass will be in the form of exhaustive gas, and the speed will be in the direction opposite to the rocket. Which makes sense. I'm just going to show him. Look, here's an equation that he made. And that's all. That's all we need to know. If they want to know more, they can. And they can research it. Because some of them are doing physics. So I'm like, here you go. Have fun. You understand this. It's been years since I've last did physics. Cool. So, 19th century science fiction. He also, in 1903, published a report called Exploration of Outer Space by Means of Rocket Devices. In it, he calculates the speed needed to remain in orbit and described a craft that could do this. His idea was of liquid-fueled rocket using liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. Don't want liquid hydrogen. You don't want liquid hydrogen. Oh no, actually, you could have liquid hydrogen. You want it to explode in this case. His design inspired future rocket scientists and father of modern astronautics. It's one of the... So yeah, the key thing about this is that this is all before we started flying on Earth. We're figuring out how to get to space before we even figured out how to fly on Earth. Didn't start flying until 1903. We then have 1926. So the first successful liquid-fueled rocket launch was on 16th of March 1926. It rose up to 12.5 meters up. It was 12.5 meters high, 55 meters across. No, wait, what? That sentence doesn't make sense. So we went up 12.5 meters and had a distance of 55 meters, and it did that in 2.5 seconds, which is fast. He is considered to be the person who ushered the space age. Oh no, it was designed by... Cool. It was designed by Robert H. Goddard, an American engineer, physicist, and inventor. He used a mixture of gasoline and liquid oxygen to propel it. He is considered to be a person who ushered in the space age. His work over the years on rocketry has formed the foundations of almighty rocketry. He's credited for 214 patents, including one for the multi-stage rocket. Cool. Cool. So he was American. Increased the thing to include drag, which makes sense because gravity is things. Worked on arm propulsions, which we'll talk about later. Liquid fueled. Can I reword this? In distance. I can't spell. There we go. Cool. We then move on to V2s, which is during the Second World War. The V2 was the first long-range guided ballistic missile. It was designed and built by the Nazis during World War II. It travelled supersonic speeds and reached altitudes of 88 to 206 kilometres. So for those that don't know, space, we have the Kármán line. The space is officially 100 kilometres above sea level. So this went very much into space. When Germany surrendered, the Allies and the USSR raced to collect the research and parts of the V2 that they could find. Using this, they tested the technology to learn more about it and use it for their own projects. Liquid propellant 1-ton warhead, so 1,000 kilometers, 1,000 kilograms. It was aimed at Allies cities in retaliation for the Allied bombings. The damage. They also had a V3 that never got to launch as well. More than 3,000 V2s were launched. Attacks resulted in deaths of about 900 civilians. So the US got as much parts they could, and they was able to build about 80 missiles. The USSR was able to get it, like the actual production. And there's another video, so let's watch it. No! We can't watch it, shame. Just get rid of that, don't need that. Von Braun, German and American aerospace engineer. He designed the V2 rocket during World War II and was a Nazi party member. So this is the time period after the Second World War where the USA was like, I want things. I want big exploding things. I want to go to space. I'm going to use people who I can. And didn't really care where they came from. So you have, I can't think of this dude, Von Braun, like used, helped America, and America's like, yeah, you do bad things, but we don't care. So the Germans surrendered. He was captured by the Americans through Operations Paperclip, and recruited by the US. He became the chief architect of the Saturn V moon rocket. So if he was an active member of this is where I need to research a bit more, but being part of the Nazi party is not a good thing. But was he an active member, or was he forced to join? I don't know. But USA didn't care. They wanted to go to the moon, so they created the Saturn V rocket that went to got people up into space to go to the moon. He received the National Medal of Science in 1975. Controversial, yeah. Escaping justice for his Nazi war crimes under the Americans' desire of the Cold War. He sometimes described himself as his father's space travel. He did think human missions to Mars were possible, and it can be for many, many years. Cool. So moving past the Second World War, now moving to the space race. So after the Second World War, the tensions between the Allies and Soviet Russia rose. The Cold War began between the two sides, including the space race to see who can send people to the moon and back first. It weren't just for fun. They wanted to try and militarize it and make it war, but they went, actually, no. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Yeah, again, need to look into it a bit more. The space race started when the USA announced it in 1955. It was going to put satellite in orbit in the next 2 to 3 years. They didn't. Russia got there. USSR got there first. Yeah, it obviously spoils it. We're going to talk about the whole space race, and we're like, yeah, here's the thing. So I don't want to add that, did you? I don't want to add that, did you know? That did you know can go, because it spoils the space race. They know what's going on, but it spoils it. So we'll talk about the key players. We've got Nikita Khrushchev. Fun fact, my sister is also called Nikita. And when she was a lot younger, I used to go to visit Cosford Museum in England. They have a little whole section on the Cold War. And I used to blame her. Like, oh, you nearly started the Third World War. And she was not happy with it about it, because she was like 6 or 7 when I did it. But it weren't her. So he was leader from 1953 to 1964. During this time, he fully supported the Soviet space program, which successfully launched Sputnik, and then achieved many firsts in space race. In 1959, he visited President Eisenhower, and this was the first state visit of a Soviet or Russian leader. We then have Eisenhower. Became president in 1953, was the second term when Sputnik was launched. He created the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA. NASA, everyone keeps thinking, including me, it's North American space thingamajiggy. But it's not, it's the National Aeronautics and Space Administrator. It's NASA, it's civilian, working with the USA. Many Americans were scared that the USSR was spying on them with satellites. Here we are nowadays. Eisenhower wanted the surveillance satellite to help stop that threat. We then have Korolev. He took over. Oh no, he was the chief designer of the Soviet space program. He created the Semyorka, I believe, yes. Yeah, he invented the R7 robot rocket. It led the team that put them on the first human being, Yuri Gagarin, into space. Later that. He was only officially known as the chief designer to protect him from perceived assassinate types. So only chief designer. He didn't actually make them. He was only designing them. He drew the pretty pictures. He did not. And he's on par with Von Braun. This was, the Semyorka was a missile, intercontinental ballistic missile, so he went from one continent to the other. Most of it remained unchanged until they started putting it into space. Still use it today. Cool. Sputnik. Oh, I love Sputnik. So cute. Sputnik was the first artificial Earth satellite. It was launched into low orbit by USSR on the 4th of October 1957. It sent a radio signal back to Earth for 3 weeks before its batteries ran out. It fell back into the atmosphere and burnt up on 4th of January 1958. It went round for 3 weeks. It's only a small little thing. 50 centimetres, nearly 60 centimetres. Wait, I have a ruler. I can actually measure it. Oops. I like this. Boom. What? Ooh. So diameter? Yeah. So, go back. It's not that big. Where my fingers are. Quite small. Had broadcast antennae, radio signature, and because nothing else was up there, quite easy to speed and get it. And because it was at 65 inclination, so 0 inclination is at your equator, and 90 is at the poles. So 65 makes it go round because the Earth has a wobble. It surprised many people. Like, bless Americans, they still thought, and still do, like, oh my god, we're so good, we can do everything first, and then this happened. They're like, what? Okay. And then because of propaganda, they thought the Soviet Union was miles behind. Cool. Animals in space. This makes me cry. So we're going to skim over it very quickly because Laika makes me sad. So fruit flies were the first animals sent to space. Space. On a V2 rocket launched in 1946. Because like I said, V2 could get up to 206 or 208 meters above sea level. Space is 100 meters. Or kilometers, not meters. And then we had Laika. Went up in Sputnik 2. Laika overheated and died and then burnt up. So people say, is Leica still up there? No, she very much burnt up, which is sad. The flies survived. The dogs didn't. Monkey, Albert II became the first mammal in space in 1949 in a V2 launched by USA. Oh no! It reached the altitude of 134 kilometers, but died when the parachute failed, which is sad. That's not what I wanted to do. You, come back. I want a picture of a rhesus monkey. I say rhesus, it's not rhesus. Let's find a cute one. That's a cute one. Let's make him sad. If it makes me sad, it will also make everyone else sad. It's fair. It's fair. Put that there. And then we can add image. No, I want animation. That's what I wanted to do, an animation. You to appear before that one. So I could talk about this one. Cool. We then have the Explorer, which is the response to Sputnik 1, 1958. So USA was on time with when they said it was going to launch stuff. Just USSR was slightly quicker. Was the first satellite launched by the USA in 1858, part of US participation in the International Geophysical Year. It was the first space to detect the Van Allen radiation belt. Returned data until the batteries ran out, and remained in orbit until 1970s. It was modified by the Ballistic Missile Agency to accommodate the satellite payload, resulting to the rocket known as Juno 1. What is... I've got images, but images not I want. It's about energetic charged particles which originate from solar wind that are captured and held around the planet's magnetic sphere. Or does NASA tell me? They do. Like I said, below low Earth orbit, these radiation belts were discovered in 1958 by astrophysicist James Van Allen, who helped uncover the key to enabling exploration of outer solar systems. Van Allen calculated that it was possible to fly through the weaker regions of radiation to reach outer space. Cool, so what do you tell me what they are? Like his house so far, Trump will be overcoming high exposure to high energy radiation from solar winds, solar storms, and galactic cosmic rays. This radiation will damage to humans than medical X-rays. So the Earth's magnetic sphere traps the higher energy radiation particles and shields the Earth from the solar storms. And consistently streaming solar wind can damage technologies people living on Earth. The trapped particles form two permanent belts of radiation known as the Van Allen belts that surrounded Earth like enormous donuts. Give me a 1. That's a fun fact. Astronauts will fly through the Van Allen belt to reach out to space. It's so important to fly through the region quickly to limit their exposure to radiation. Sensitive electronics on satellites and spacecraft travelling through the Van Allen belts also need to be protected from isolation. I mean, oh, No fun fact. Cool. So, let's add what a Van Halen thing is, because it's important to know clearly. And make you bold. Cool, so that bit. So I'm going to take a break so I can get more juice. And I'll see you shortly. Unmute mic. It's back. I had a snack, got my drink, got a different flavour. This is passion fruit and rhubarb, I believe. I think it's passion fruit and rhubarb. Has a flavour. Cool. Small. Where were we? Where were we? We were here. So, Explorer. Yeah, we've got Van Allen radiation belt. Pardon me. So, we've got Explorers 1, 3 and 4 here. Explorer 2 failed. Did it explode or just didn't do anything? That's the question. Repetition of the previous Explorer 1. Final launch, but it was identical. Tell me what happened. What happened? The flight was normal through first stage integrated. Fourth stage failure to ignite, making allowing the orbital velocity impossible. The spacecraft re-entered the atmosphere and fell into the open ocean. For the launch site. Oh, okay, so it just didn't get all the way up. The last part of it didn't go. So when it says failed to launch. So, fourth stage failed to ignite. All my life, I can spell, I promise. Look. Oh no, it says I can't. Oh well, I can't spell. Failed to ignite. Ignite, wonderful. Failed to ignite. So it couldn't. That's how I spell couldn't either. Oh my life. Couldn't get to orbital velocity. Landed in the Atlantic Ocean. I think my keyboard's also slowly dying on me, battery wise, because I've got this cute little USB one. It's purple, like the mouse, they come together. Cool. So, Explorer 3 was an American satellite launched into medium Earth orbit on March 58. The objective of the spacecraft was continuing experiments from Explorer 1 and cosmic ray counter micrometeor detector. So, meteorites are things like space, they go zoom, zoom, zoom. And micrometeors are tiny and deadly. So, Explorer 4 was in July of the same year. Much higher inclination and the apogee, so the furthest part of the Earth orbit, or its orbit, apogee. Soon after orbiting stage, the spacecraft developed an end-over-end tumbling motion, so it was just like woo! For about 6 seconds, which affected the measurements signal level throughout the mission. The telemetry that came back was analysed for the free operation Anglers nuclear weapons tests at high altitude. Oh yeah, Cold War nucleus. Part of the mission objectives was to observe the effects of these high altitude atomic bomb detonations in the space environment. The discovery of the Van Allen radiation belt by the Explorer satellites was one of the astounding discoveries of the geophysical year. Cool. We're now going on to people in space. So Vostok. Yuri Gagarin was the first person to go into space on 12th April 1961. He was aboard the Vostok 1. And Valentina Tereshkov became the first woman to go into space in the 16th of June 1963. Vostok 6. So the Vostok program was a Soviet human spaceflight program to put the first Soviet systems into orbit and return them to safely, which they did. They succeeded. The rocket was adapted from the existing R-7 intercontinental ballistic missile, and Vostok capital was developed from the spy satellite. 6 crewed space flights between 1961 and 1963. Vostok 1 carried cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin to space for a single orbit on the 12th of April 1961. He became the first person in space. Spent around about 2 hours in space. When his aircraft was 7 kilometers from the ground, the hatch released. Oops. He was ejected out because that's a lot of pressure at that point. So was that purposeful? I'm guessing it was purposeful. They're like, we don't know if this big honking piece of metal is going to survive with a person in it, or the person in it's not going to survive. So if we go separately and bring it down. And then the first woman, Valentina, spent under 3 days in space. So cool. Oh no! So she had food, water, toothpaste, but no toothbrush. Which I'm sure many people have been away and gone, I don't have a toothbrush. She had to eject and landed safely by parachute. So was that on purpose or was it not? I'm not sure. Let's see if the world of the internet tells me. There we go. You don't tell me what I needed on that website. Come on, Wikipedia. Design. Prototype. Re-entry had limited thrust capability. As a result, the re-entry path and orientation could not be controlled after the capsule had separated from the engine system. This meant the capsule had been protected from re-entry heat on all sides. So that's why it's got a circular thing. That's useful. I'm going to copy that image and put it on here so this is what they landed in, kids. This is what they landed in. Some control of camera orientation was possible the way of positioning heavy equipment. So just shove everything. If the photograph naturally decayed from orbit within 10 days, the cosmonaut was provided enough food and oxygen to survive until that time. So it doesn't say. So I'm guessing it was unintentional. Project Mercury. So this is the USA side now. So the first 2 Mercury missions used Redstone rockets for the suborbital flights. Then they used the Atlas rocket, which could get the capsule. So this was the first human spaceflight program the US did, running through 58 to 63. The same goal as Vod of Vostok missions are putting people in orbit and bringing them back down safely. The USSR did that first. They conducted 20 uncrewed flights to test stuff, some with animals, and they had 6 successful flights by astronauts. They were known as the Mercury 7, Scott Carpenter, Gordon Cooper, John Glenn, Gus Grissom, Wally Schirra, Alan Shepard, and Deke Slayton. The US launched its first astronaut, Alan Shepard, on a suborbital flight. If you've watched the movie Hidden Figures, which is my mum's favourite film, and it's a good film, I enjoy it. It makes me cry. Many things make me cry. It's all about this and the computers, the human computers, because computers are not a big thing here. They did all the maths about it. It's a good film. And it's this time period. The suborbital flight. So John Glenn made 3 orbits around the Earth in 1962, and then he went back in 1998 onto the space shuttle at the age of 77. That was fun. So 25 meters tall, the Red Mercury Redstone vehicle launch vehicle with a capsule and escape system, single stage launch vehicle. It had a liquid fuel engine that burned alcohol and liquid oxygen, including 330 kilonewtons of thrust, which is not enough for orbital missions. So it could get us so far, but not actually orbital. We got it from the V2, so we did not. I say we. The US got it from the V2. Alan Shepard was the first American in space. He had 15 minutes and 28 seconds. Gus Grissom became the second American on Mercury Redstone 4. The height of the Mercury Atlas space vehicle launch was 29 meters. Orbital missions required the use of larger Atlas LV-3B rockets. It was developed from the USA, first operational. Let's make me reading that easier. The rocket was steered by thrusters, guided by gyroscopes. John Glenn was made 3 orbits. So when the Project Mercury ended in 1962, or 1963, both USA and USA sent 6 people to space. But Soviets had more time. Chose to go to the moon. So, John F. Kennedy here chose to go to the moon. So he was president from 1961 to 1963 until his assassination. During a speech in May 1961, he pledged that the USA would commit to landing a man on the moon and returning himself safely within the decade. Which they did. They succeeded. He also gave the famous "We chose to go to the moon" speech. So that was to bolster public support and a proposal to land a man on the moon because it was expensive. Called a competition for the Soviet Union. He proposed making it a joint project because it's expensive. Does this speech still exist? Because the last few videos I tried to play it hasn't.
Hej, nu kör vi. Hallå!
There you go. Has some ads. That is a unique taste.
We meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. The greater our knowledge increases, the greater our ignorance unfolds. No man can fully grasp how far and how fast we have come. But condense, if you will, the 50,000 years of man's recorded history in a time span of but a half a century. Stated in these terms, we know very little about the first 40 years, except at the end of them, advanced man had learned to use the skins of animals to cover them. Then about 10 years ago, under this standard, man emerged from his caves to construct other kinds of shelter. Only 5 years ago, man learned to write and use a cart with wheels. Christianity began less than 2 years ago. The printing press came this year. And then less than 2 months ago, during this whole 50-year span of human history, the steam engine provided a new source of power. Newton explored the meaning of gravity. Last month, electric lights and telephones and automobiles and airplanes became available. Only last week did we develop penicillin and television and nuclear power. This is a breathtaking pace, and such a pace cannot help but create new ills as it dispels old. So it is not surprising that some would have us stay where we are a little longer, to rest, to wait. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. We shall send to the moon, 240,000 miles away, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.
I may show that to the kids, may not. Depends on how much time I have. Well, that's a good little thing. Cool. We then have the Voskhod. Voskhod 1 carried 3 cosmonauts into space. First time there was more than one person. Voskhod 2 launched in 1965 and first spacewalk. So they're both one-day missions. So these were just testing. Going out. Oh no! So they need to go on a diet. Bless them. And no ejection seats this time, so you hope that it would land properly. First person to leave the spacecraft in a spacesuit to conduct a 12-minute spacewalk. Oh no! At the end of the spacewalk, he was forced to bleed off some of his suit's pressure in order to be able to bend the joints to get back inside, going below the safety limits. Whoopsie! We then have Project Gemini, which is US again. So taking it in turns. So the second United States human spaceflight flown from 61 to 66, the Titan II. the objectives were for Apollo missions. So the mission for Gemini was to demonstrate endurance of human equipment in spaceflight for extended periods, at least 8 days, to require for moon landing to maximize of 2 weeks. Effect rendezvous of docking with another vehicle to demonstrate spacewalks outside of protection of spacecraft. Perfect techniques of re-entry and touchdown at pre-selected locations on land. Because they were like, this is expensive, we want to keep stuff, please. So Gemini 3 was the first crewed spacecraft to use thrusters to change its orbit. In Gemini 4, Ed White became the first American to make a spacewalk. Gemini 5 had an 8-day mission, which is roughly what's needed to visit the moon. And first used to use fuel cells to generate its electrical power. 6A and 7 did the first space rendezvous. 8 was Neil Armstrong, so he was in space before he went to the moon. Achieved the first space docking with an uncrewed spacecraft. And then Buzz Aldrin in Gemini 12 became the first space person to prefer that useful work could be done outside a spacecraft without life-threatening exhaustion. So, like, we can do stuff, we don't have to die. Due to the newly implemented footholds and handholds and scheduled rest periods. So before, bless this dude. Where was it again? I feel sorry. Leonov just gripped and hoped for the best. We then have the Soyuz. This was originally designed to put a cosmonaut on the moon, so you hear the words astronaut and cosmonaut. Astronaut literally means you went up on a US flight, and cosmonaut means you went up on a US or Russian flight. So this was the 60s. Spacecraft were originally part of the Moon Landing Project. 60s. The first one was in 1966. Soyuz 1 launched in 67, but crashed due to parachute failure, killing a cosmonaut, Vladimir Komorov. Soyuz 3 launched during October 1968 and was successful. Soyuz 11, the only other flight to suffer a fatal accident, killed its crew of 3 when the cabin depressurized just before re-entry. Oof. These are the only humans to date who have died above the Kármán line, which is known as space. So the first 3 people, the only 3 people to actually die in space. It's widely considered the world's safest, most cost-effective human spaceflight vehicle, having made more than 140 flights. They're still in use today. We use them to go to the International Space Station, so the ISS. And at least one is always attached to the ISS in case they need to get someone down quickly. The Soyuz and Apollo flights both launched in July 1975. The 2 spacecraft docked in 1975, July 17th. The 2 missions commanders exchanged the first international handshake in space through an open hatch. While the other 2 ships were docked, the 3 Americans and 2 Soviets conducted joint scientific experiments and exchanged flags and gifts. After just under 2 days, they separated and completed tasks alone. So look, they can work together. And then we have the Apollo program. So this was the United States space program. What many people know now is what actually got them onto the moon. It ran from 68 to 72. So 12 men walked on the moon in that period. So the Stage 3 Saturn V rocket, which launched the Apollo mission spacecraft, was 10 meters in diameter and 110 meters tall. It was very heavy, with 43,900 kilograms payload. It grew, got heavier, and for later advanced lunar language. Apollo 11 launched in July 1969 with the crew Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin. Armstrong and Aldrin performed the first landing on the Sea of Tranquility and spent a total of 21 hours and 36 minutes on the surface. with 2 hours and 31 outside the spacecraft. So they didn't walk around for 21 hours. They was like, ooh, we're out here, and go back in. And then returned on July 24th. So on that video, where it's like, first man started on his voiceover, it's edited. That video is now edited. His voiceover is not when he's walking down the steps. He's already said it at that point. The person you see walking down the steps with the camera is Buzz Aldrin. Neil Armstrong was all there with the camera and he was like, you look like a proud dad. So that's it. Oh, there's a bunch of pictures in my way. Cool. So when did the space end race? There weren't a definite end, but these are the ones that we're going to do. So Apollo 11, people believe it technically ended when we landed on the moon. So the US landed on the moon. And I was like, yeah, there's no point we're going up there now. You also had 1975. Many believe the space race symbolically ended when the US Apollo capsule and the Soyuz capsule docked. So, and they shook hands at. They're like, yo, we can work together, which is fun. 1991 when the USSR collapsed. So the space race between the USA and the USSR was no more because the USSR did not exist. So I believe it's one of the other two. Not this one. Between the 70s and 90s, we didn't do much. As we can see, that we didn't talk about it. So many believe that the old or new space race with new characters. It's now primarily West versus Russia and China, with involvement from commercial companies. Purpose Earth shifted flag planting to long-term sustainable habitation on the moon and the solar system. So that's what the Artemis 2 mission, not Artemis 2, the Artemis missions are looking at. Technology has progressed with advancements in rockets, science, spacecraft, medicine, cheap access to space, and there's now more potential threats in space as well, with micrometeors, space debris, all that fun stuff, but also weaponizing space. When do you think the space ended then? Cool. So timeline. Wikipedia's my friend. So we've got the 70, 72, 74, 75, 78, the 80s. So we started exploring planets from the 70s because I saw that Mercury spacecraft applied the same planet multiple times. First flying Mercury, first mission to explore 2 planets in a single mission. First flight to Jupiter, first mission sent to Mercury. We was going to Mars in the 70s. That's cool. No, on the planet. Apollo 13. I'm guessing the 70s. So 1970s. Started to explore other planets. Like, I don't need to go into too much detail, but it's good to know, because to them, they'll think it ended. Because it's not talked about. Slash landing on them. I know it's not humans. I don't need to write that. I know that. What other cool things happened in the 70s? Orbits, observatories, Saturn. 80s. What happened in the 80s? Oh, crap. The space shuttle. The space shuttle started to be used / reused. First plants grown in space. Grown in space. We then had first detection of an exoplanet. So an exoplanet is basically a planet that's not in our solar system. Followed by Neptune. 90s. First photograph of the whole solar system. Family photo, not fist. First family photo of solar system made by Voyager 1. That's supposed to be a B. Polar orbit around the sun. Map Venus. The launch of the the launch of the ISS. And then we have 2000s, when these kids may have been born. Depends on who I'm teaching that day. First orbit of an asteroid. First landing on an asteroid. That's cool. Landing on an asteroid. Asteroid. How do you spell asteroid? Asteroid. First spacecraft impacted. Oh dear. 2010s. First orbit. Oh. When did I go to college? 13, 14, 15. So it's one of these. So the 2nd of March, along with affiliate law, this landing mark, device to perform detailed study of. Cool. No, I remember getting quite happy about this when I was in college. First spacecraft to orbit and land on a comet. Got so much stuff off that comet as well. It's amazing. First photo of a black hole. And then 2020s. Which, like, we're 6 years into it. Oh yeah. Ingenuity on Mars was a little helicopter that came off Perseverance, and he went up a bit and then crashed. But we did it. We was able to create flight on Mars. So on Mars. Let's just put on Mars. Makes more sense. Mars. Launch of the James Webb. Launch of James Webb Space Telescope. JWS Space Telescope. Scope. And then furthest distance traveled by humans. Cool. We have done what I've intended to do for that. So I've learned about the history of rockets and all that. Wonderful. So the next part will be learning about rocket propulsions, but it is nearly 6 o'clock for me and I'm hungry. So I'm gonna end it there. So thank you very much. I'll maybe stream again. This was fun. I enjoyed myself. Talking into a void is fun. Maybe you listened. Maybe you didn't. Who knows? But I had fun, and that's a good thing. So, don't know when I'm going to stream again. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe not. I don't know. But I do need to do that next section on rocket propulsion, so it'll be at some point before Tuesday. Because I need to do it before Tuesday. Tuesday evening. So, cool. Let's attempt a raid. Do anyone I know is live? Ooh. So who want to go for? Let's go for Tiny Toxic Tofu. She does a lot of physics and engineering type stuff. She's building something at the moment. I'm not sure what she's building. And then playing Mass Effect. So she may be playing Mass Effect soon. Cool. So thank you very much. And let's give this a go. Thanks everyone.